Hello, people. I'm about to show you a reaction video I made to the YouTube channel Bernadine Bluntly, which I think is a very intelligent YouTuber. I wanted to showcase her, but she's going to be in a minute. She's going to be talking about the Manosphere, the so-called Manosphere, which I think is a stupid term. But I wanted to pose a question to the audience right from the start to put in to just kick off a conversation in the comments. What do you think about the Manosphere, so-called Manosphere overall? And is there a specific individual within the Manosphere you tend to gravitate toward? I hope it's not Andrew Tate. I think he's one of the worst of the Manosphere. I have an affinity for the Whatever podcast, Brian Atlas, even though they tend to go on very long, unrelated tangents, and they don't have the most intelligent guests on that show. But they might be one of the better ones there. But who do you think is the most intelligent person influencer within the Manosphere? But and go subscribe to the YouTuber Bernadine Bluntly. She's really good. I think she has some great takes. But without further ado, here she is.
This isn't just about toxic men, it's about the deeper issues going on between men and women in our modern times. I just watched Louis Theroux's Inside the Manosphere documentary and I have thoughts. The documentary was a mix of disturbing, intense, and also sad. Theroux interviews the key speakers and public figures inside the Manosphere, which is also called the Red Pill Manosphere. Those men would include Sneeko, Myron Gaines, Justin Waller, this guy named Harrison, and another guy named Ed Maddie, whom I'm new to those two. The film opens up with some really intense and disturbing quotes from mostly Andrew Tate. He said, "A man who's not dangerous will never be seen as successful." And then the Harrison guy says, "If your bitch is going to a club when you said no, destroy her fucking life." There are clear problems, real problems that the Manosphere addresses, like male loneliness, dating frustrations, lack of purpose, lack of male figures in their lives, and trying to navigate the world as it is with a lot of the changes that technology and social media have brought. However,
The Manosphere, people like the Whatever podcast and Myron Gaines, those podcasts, they occasionally they touch on some good points, but I think overall they're not the brightest people, and they don't go very deep into the issues. They don't really go deep into root causes of issues. So if you watch them, just take it with a grain of salt.
I think that their solutions fall short, very short, like short. That I believe that the Manosphere solution is simply part of the problem as well, because their idea of strong and what actually is strong don't match up. I was seeing people push back on it because it was giving gay. But I watched the entire documentary and surprisingly, I did not get that vibe at all. What I did see was a lot of insecurity. I was very alarmed and very sick to my stomach because of the things they were saying about women. Thankfully, Louis Theroux served as that contrast. He was letting them talk and letting them express themselves and honestly letting them expose their beliefs and where things were not lining up. So here are some of my conclusions and thoughts after watching this documentary. They are extremely insecure. That might come off as a lazy criticism about people and ideologies that I don't agree with, but actually, no, I'm honest to God, that seems to be the core of this entire
I think I'd agree with that. Brian Atlas and Myron Gaines, they seem like kind of insecure men.
ideology. Insecurity. I don't say that as a diss, I say that as an honest observation. And I believe their insecurity comes from very specific things. One is fatherlessness growing up. Many of these key figures in the Manosphere did not have fathers growing up, or if they did, they were not treated well. Andrew Tate was quoted in the documentary, even though he wasn't interviewed in it himself. He says, "My dad beat the F out of me. I became very realistic of the world with one ass kicking." And then the other men are either shown or quoted saying that they
That's the unfortunate reality of people who don't grow up without fathers, and even worse, people who grow up in abusive households. They tend to internalize it and redirect it back outwards when they get older. Basically, hurt people hurt people.
They had instability in the home and there was a lot of violence. There was an absent father. I believe that when that happens to a boy, he becomes very insecure and fearful of the world. He's also insecure because he wants to prove to his father, whether his father walked out on them or not, or just mistreated them even though they were there, he wants to prove to his dad that he is a boy worth loving. And that part is the sad part to me in all of this. These men are living for ghosts. They're living for the endless pursuit of their father's approval. And since they didn't have a healthy father figure growing up, they don't know what makes them a man at the core. And so they're trying to use all of these things, these external things that you can visibly see very quickly, to try to puff themselves up and prove that they are a man.
I think that's a good way to put it. Living for ghosts. I think that's a phenomenon in human psychology with both genders, both men and women. Oftentimes, not only are we shaped by who is in our lives, but also who isn't in our lives. And to put it in a more poetic way, the people who aren't there still are there in some way or another, if I'm making sense.
And that they are a son worth loving. They have these nice cars, they have these large homes, they have all these women that they just call hoes, anyways. They have all this money, supposedly, and all these successful businesses and entrepreneurship. They don't work for the matrix, they don't do 9 to 5s, they're their own boss. They're strong, they're muscular, they're healthy, they can go on trips whenever they want, they can fly themselves to this and that place and go on boats and whatever. And it's all like toys. It's all these external things that they're collecting and pursuing to try to show something, to prove that they are worth loving. I believe this insecurity is also making them afraid of other men. Hear me out. Do they compete with one another with how much they possess and how many girls they have?
Well, the pursuit of money and success, at least material success, can be a mask for something deeper.
But it doesn't bring them joy or satisfaction, because what it's all about is to feel safe around other men, so those men don't fight or hurt them or compete. And then hopefully, if they're alpha enough, then the other alpha men won't threaten them, won't come after them. When a boy is raised to believe that control gives you safety, that dominance is the only way to protect yourself, then he will compete via collecting all of these external things that enable him to boast about his worth and who he is.
And oftentimes, if a person thinks strength is the best advantage, that's probably what he's gonna like. If that's all he knows is, hey, it's dog eat dog, strongest survives, then that's what he's gonna put most of his energy into, is being the strongest. But strength needs to come with tenderness too. A part of being strong is knowing when not to use force.
That confidence is flaky because those things never last. Not even the women that they're with. Those women don't stay with them and don't love them for them, and they know it. Those women are there for their money, and then their money could disappear at any moment. So there's not a sense of stability or a concrete foundation of their identity. That's why they're insecure and constantly competing with one another. So when they grow up this way, I think that women naturally, even though it's horrible and not excusable, I'm not excusing it at all, I'm explaining it. I think women become collateral damage because they become resources for these guys. They're just another, piece of the game, another toy in their life where they can show off the quantity and how many girls they have to prove their worth, their identity, their confidence, and their power.
And I think that's a consequence of how materialistic our culture has become. Everything has become transactional these days. We don't really believe in anything deeper anymore. So it's just surface level thinking, surface level transactions. It's all about money and what we perceive to be valuable.
and they're just collateral damage, because then it's not about relationship, it's about hierarchy. It's not about loving those women and treating them right. It's just about collecting them and using them to boast about who they are, about who the men are to other men. And I think that's the part that other critics are calling gay, because it seems like your whole lifestyle revolves around other men, and it does, but not in a sexual sensual way. It's literally fear and insecurity based. That's another reason why, even though a lot of these men will disavow OnlyFans or whores or prostitution, like they hate Bonnie Blue, but at the same time, these men all boast about having women. They have them just all over them, half naked, and they literally will post pornographic videos in their telegrams and in their, I mean, it's all around them.
I think there's always been kind of a double standard when it comes to sex and how it affects each gender. Sex has always had a higher cost for women than it has had for men, because women carry the burden of childbirth. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. However, we should be promoting a culture of responsibility especially when it comes to sex. We should be treating both young men and young women how to be responsible with sex. It shouldn't. I don't believe there's a such thing as casual sex. That's an oxymoron. There's nothing casual about sex, and you need to be careful with it.
Prostitution, pornography is part of their brand. The main guests that shows like Fresh and Fit and whatever podcast have are the OnlyFans models, or whatever you want to call them. They do OnlyFans, they do these R-rated content online, or they're straight up escorts in real life. When I went on the whatever podcast in 2023, I was like 102 non-OnlyFans girls on the show. But they do this because, ironically enough, even though they hate the OnlyFans girls, they still use them for clout, for views, and they have them on the show, I think, specifically to bash them and put them down, to discourage them, and also to make them not just quit OnlyFans for morality's sake, but to quit it so that they don't have the kind of agency. Even though it's corrupted, they have independence and ability to make a lot of money. So
that's probably my biggest critique of the whatever podcast. I do kind of enjoy the show. I watch it occasionally. They do tend to go on tangents, unrelated tangents. And most of the guests are OnlyFans girls. Brian has that podcast has a huge following, and Brian could use that show a little more responsibly by having on more intelligent guests. But that's a tangent. That's my 2 cents on the show, but it's not my show. Brian can run it however he wants.
So these girls can take themselves on trips. They can buy their own nice clothes. They can, buy a car or whatever. So I think the Manosphere views OnlyFans girls as competition. Because if they're making a lot of money, then now their whole shtick about what do you bring to the table is...
That's another great point. All those OF girls might be using that show just to promote themselves.
Not really going to work. These men want to be able to bring to the table the trips and the clothes and the money and the cars and the house and all of these external, like, materialistic things. So if women are able to get those things on their own, without a middleman, without paying somebody else, without having a male boss over that, what do they have to offer? So that makes them insecure, and that makes them competitive, and they see these OnlyFans girls as threats, but they will have this really strange symbiotic relationship where they're getting clout from each other, making money off of each other, even though they supposedly hate each other. But they can't seem to get enough of one another. So the Manosphere is not against OnlyFans for morality's sake. They're against it for competitive and competition's sake. They don't seem to have a problem with porn. They just have a problem with the women being able to make it on their own and not have to do it with a guy over them. And if they actually make that much money, like OnlyFans brags, well, then that's a threat to what they will be able to bring to the table. And it's just this sick, twisted dynamic where they're feeding off of each other's insecurity and also feeding off of each other's clout. And as someone...
that's a factor with any business, any business, whether they're competing with each other or not. More competition is always good. I can't think of a situation where where marketplaces benefit from less participants.
Has been online for years and years. I have been a target of some of these takes from extreme gender ideologists, from everyone from IBLP, like fundy guys, to the Manosphere guys. They will tell you things like log off, get off the internet, women don't belong in politics, women don't need to be online, and you don't need to create content. We don't want to hear your voice. We don't care what you think. Even if you like agree with them on something.
That's just mean. Don't do that. I mean, if you don't like what someone's saying, you can always just close the tab or whatever, or hell, just turn off the computer, get outside. Don't tell someone else to stop talking. We all have a right to speak.
Things, or say that you agree with some things, like, oh, we're both against OnlyFans. They don't care, because the core problem is that I am competition, they're competition. Women being online, being on social media, succeeding, making money off of that is competition to these guys. All because they're insecure and they don't know what else to bring to the table to women, because all they think women want is money and trips and sex. Like, they think that's all women want. They don't have anything else to offer. Not character, not kindness, not care, not love. Obviously,
because someone like that only thinks in terms of materialism and transactions. They don't really see people as people. They just see people as things.
Don't love women. They love using them, but they don't actually care about them as human beings. In the documentary, some of the guys refer to the women as dishwashers. They tell them to leave or to go clean something while Louis Theroux was interviewing them. I'm so thankful for the men who still respect and care about women and see them as humans, instead of as resources or competition. And I know men are out there. So many of you are my subscribers, and other guys who are insecure, like guys in the Manosphere, will say, "You're a simp. You're a simp."
I fucking hate that term.
Because you treat women with decency. No, I don't care if they call you a simp. I am so glad you exist, because you are the example that these men need. And I know some men don't.
It's about half the video. I like what this girl's saying. Her channel is Bernadine Bluntly. Go subscribe to her. Let me know what you all think.